Hello and welcome to this video, which I am super excited about, with the lovely Liz Nagle and amazing Amy Bird. We're going to be talking about the astrology at this time, and I'm sure Amy's going to fill us in on what's going on with this Pluto moving and the Sun moving from Capricorn into, I've just read your blog on that, Amy, moving from Capricorn into Aquarius. And I'm sure Amy's going to fill us in on that, and Liz, I'm sure, will add her words of wisdom. So without further ado, ladies, welcome back. And shall we dive straight in with Amy?
Okay, so yeah, this is a very auspicious moment to be doing this, really, because we're really in the very last degrees of having Pluto in Capricorn. And Pluto went into Capricorn in 2008 originally, when we had the kind of the big crash, and Pluto in Capricorn has definitely represented, you know, a kind of a detoxification of the power structures, you know, having a look into the kind of the shadow side of it. And you know, and things like, you know, we had the Jimmy Savile stuff come up in this time, the BBC, I think, and the banks, and there's been quite a lot of kind of like looking at the darkness within. The idea being that the Capricorn patriarchal structures, which is Capricorn, are kind of like going through a bit of a death and a rebirth in a way. That's what has been going on, where we see what's not working in the traditional kind of structures of society, and then move on. You know, now we're going to move on into Aquarius, which we'll see what happens there. But I'm just going to stick with Capricorn for a little while. I was thinking about plutocracy, and I thought, what is plutocracy? Exactly. And I looked it up. I knew it was something to do with having a lot of power, but actually plutocracy is the powers or governments kind of ruled by people with a lot of money. And if you think about it, it is kind of the 1% that is kind of ruling. And as we move into Aquarius, the idea is that it's the more than 99% that maybe will have their say, because that's what Aquarius is all about. So, and the other thing that happens with Pluto going through Capricorn, and this really has you know, like kind of got more intense in the past few years, and that is that it's the structure of our lives, both personally and collectively. And I think that, you know, all of the lockdowns really did, after that, the structure of society, the structure of our lives, there's been a lot. If we look back to what life was like beforehand, and everybody says, you know, there's the new normal, or what was normal, we're going back to normal. Well, I don't think we're ever going to go back to normal. And so I think with Pluto going into Aquarius, which happens on Sunday, by the way, we have a chance now to kind of like, I guess, question the rules, break the rules. Aquarius is brotherhood, sisterhood, it's community, it's questioning tradition, questioning values, it's progression, innovation, it is technology. So there is the possibility of seeing the you know, the exposure of the dark side of technology, like AI and things like that, but also how the internet is used and things like that. And but the other thing is that Capricorn is very much about our conditioning, and I've really got a big dose of that in recent times, about that kind of almost like a burden that we get. I don't know, I kind of had a release of a burden recently that's been really quite profound, and a feeling of going back to my 16-year-old self, and that kind of exuberance that the 16-year-old had. And then I thought about all the layers of life that happens over time, and that's basically our conditioning and our programming, and that's the Capricorn side of things. And so then we have, you know, Aquarius, which breaks down that and helps liberate us from the past, and liberate us from that heaviness of what we're carrying, that maybe is blocking us from our unique self, out that an original spark that came through, or who knows what the original spark was, you know, like maybe when we were first conceived or something like that. But you know, the real us, the authentic us, and that's what Aquarius is very much about: authenticity. It's about sincerity, really truly being ourselves. So it'll be interesting to see if there's going to be more kind of communication, I mean, sorry, not communication, community, sense of community, and more grassroots movements, more kind of a solidarity when it comes to the people, more instead of the hierarchical structure, then potentially more of a kind of a horizontal system where the people have more of a say. Yeah, it's going to be interesting. There is also the potential for more uprisings and more revolutions, but also a lot of innovation, new ideas, new technology, renewable energy. Yeah, so it's quite exciting, and they're very, very different energies. You know, that Capricorn is tradition, it's kind of the patriarchy, the old world in a way, and then Aquarius is very much new vision, you know, freedom, equality. And as over the course of this week, and I'll stop talking in a minute because I am interested to hear how, you know, how what you think about all of this. There is more that I want to talk about, by the way, because we do also have Chiron conjunct the North Node at the moment, but I feel like we should probably start with this. So, but over the past week, we've had the Sun combining with Pluto. And it's interesting that at the almost at the same time as the Sun moves into Aquarius, then Pluto moves into Aquarius, which makes it ever more powerful, but also has made this last bit of the Capricorn experience a little bit more intense, I think. And it's brought up themes around, you know, how we give our power away, maybe, or how we use our power, but also can bring up fears, like quite deep-seated fears. And also, you know, like that thing that we're avoiding, maybe because we know the truth of the matter, we know what the true heart of whatever it is that we're contemplating at this moment, but maybe that's just hard to go there. You know, it's hard to go there. But in this past week, there's more of a kind of emphasis on, okay, face the fears, face what's really, you know, that thing that you've been putting off because it's too hard to look at. And that is the energy of Pluto in Capricorn. And so I think on a personal level, on a collective level, and, you know, patriarchal power is certainly kind of like, we can see that in spades at the moment. And so, yeah, it's a powerful moment. And I think that it's going to be while we're speaking, I think, actually, that the Sun is moving into Aquarius, which is nice. But then, so when the Sun moves into Aquarius, you have more of a, you can feel the shift a little bit more, because I remember last year being, oh goodness, I can feel the difference between, you know, Capricorn and moving into Aquarius, because it feels lighter and airier. But Pluto's a little bit more of a subtle, gradual, but powerful energy. But the fact that they're happening together may make it feel a little bit more tangible in some ways. So, yeah. So this is an important time, really. And yeah, and I'm hoping that there will be that chance for kind of freedom, and freedom from the past, and freedom from, if we think about and this is where I'm going to stop talking now, but the conditioning is not just personal, is it? It's not just the conditioning that we've experienced over the course of our personal lifetime, but it's layers and layers of conditioning of the collective and how we're all operating. So yeah, so a powerful weekend to be doing this. I'm glad that we were able to do it at this particular moment in time. So
yeah, Amy, thank you so much for that. One of the things that you said, so Pluto has been in Capricorn since 2008. So I didn't realize, because that's such a long time that it's been in there, right? I didn't realize that. And of course, I've heard that Pluto's now going to be in Aquarius for maybe, I don't know, 20 years or something.
Yeah, it's usually 16 to 20 years ish. So yeah.
Well, that kind of really feels yeah, good. I mean, it kind of adds to how much change there's going to be. It's not just kind of like, oh, a little bit this month, a little bit. It's like massive chunks of society and stuff like that. So all this, like you said, there was all the money crisis in 2008. So it's all connected, isn't it?
Yeah.
But I have one question, because I just have keywords for, like, Aquarius, Uranus, and the qualities of these, the energetic qualities of these. And in my list for Aquarius and Uranus, I've got surprising events.
Yes.
Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would. Yeah, and it will depend on what Uranus is doing at that particular moment. For instance, on the new moon on the 9th, Uranus is going to be squaring that moon. So that brings the potential for surprising, yes. And just Aquarius and Uranus think outside the box. And Uranus brings greater clarity and also, as I said, liberation from the past and our conditioning. But I have definitely found that when Uranus and Aquarius are involved, it can bring shifts of consciousness, higher perspective, because Uranus gives us that chance to step back. And Aquarius is very known for being detached, but it's that part of us that steps back. And that's why it can be outsider energy, because it's kind of that I'm outside of the group, I'm outside of everything, just kind of looking down. But when you look down at things from a higher perspective, you can see it more clearly, including yourself.
Definitely. So it's like the observer self or the witness self.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so we could be looking at some surprising events, of course, and of course that can be on a personal level, community level, or a collective level.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I find that that surprising events, they're almost like a jolt. They kind of jolt you either back on the right path or into a greater sense of awareness in a way, but yeah, that's what I found personally.
Amy, I noticed you said you were talking about our conditioning, and some areas of conditioning become very obvious to us, and then there's other much more subtle areas. And I was listening to Richard Rudd again on the gene keys. One of my gene keys, my central one, is 19, and it's moving from codependence to sacrifice on the path of sensitivity. But the codependence, when I'm listening to him explaining it, I mean, it did bring up things from, past relationships and stuff where I was in a codependent relationship. But I feel that I have grown through an awful lot of that, and my relationships are much more healthy now. But it's with retrospect, but still the codependence is still there, because it's still there on the collective level, because as Richard says, we agree to support each other's illusion, the illusion that we're separate, the illusion that there is another, but I'll go there again later. But all of our illusions around society and how it works, and our relationships and how they work, and what love is, and we kind of support those illusions all the time, and in a very destructive, really codependent way, and this is why when anybody steps out of that supporting role, we get very upset with them, because really they're pulling down the the scenery in our of our play, of our scene. So yeah, I just thought that that was interesting, and how it you know, because there is only me, how it sort of dovetails into what I'm working on at the moment, which is interesting.
Yeah, the conditioning of society when it comes to relationships, you just look at all the movies that we watch for a start, you know, that's like, and if you think about it, programming, you know, watching televisions and movies is kind of like, it does program us in a way, you know, as to what is normal and what is just and right. It's interesting what you're talking about specifically with codependency, because we do have the South Node in Libra at the moment and the North Node in Aries, which is very much to do with kind of breaking the codependency, and remembering who we are. Who am I and what are my needs versus, you know, what do we need, or what do you need, or, you know, yeah.
Well, that's the pathway of sensitivity, is learning about what others need, or about what we need, you know, when there is only us. It's being in touch with our feelings, which was what your cards were about this week. Deborah, I love the synchronicities, it's amazing. But yeah, that's the pathway of sensitivity, and then sacrifice, which, you know, plays into the poor me codependent side. I love how these things just kind of curtail or curve back into each other. Sacrifice is, you know, the need to sacrifice my ego, really, and my ideas about what is meant to be, or what things should be. That's what I'm sacrificing. I'm not sacrificing, you know, my body or soul on a cross. It's not that kind of sacrifice. It's sacrificing my ego, sacrificing my ideas, my opinions, my
Attachments.
yes, my idea of self.
Yeah.
And my attachment to codependence. And actually becoming, it's letting go of, it's first of all letting go of the I need somebody else to take care of me, or to take care of, you know, I need that. So you let go of that, and then you become quite independent. But then the sacrifice is even letting go of your independence, and just allowing life to play you, you know, and just going with that. So yeah, it's a strange journey, but all very, very protected, you know. It's like when we let go of what we think is protecting us, we are actually protected. We are actually supported. It's like falling off the high wire into the net, you know. And that's where we can be, that's where it's so much more simple and so much more easy.
Freer,
Yeah.
I want to say, it's free. There's a freedom, because, and really, yeah, it's interesting because sacrifice is quite a harsh word, isn't it? But yeah, it's because you're also in that sacrificing certain relationships, or being prepared to sacrifice those relationships. But actually, all you're doing, like you said, is letting go. And when we let go, there's a freedom attached. And you know, that kind of, you know, let go of what you love, and if it comes back to you. So we could be sacrificing a relationship, but actually in the process, we're healing the relationship, because we're taking away the codependency. Because when we sacrifice the relationship, what we're actually doing is releasing our attachment to it. And we know this, don't we? When we release our attachment to stuff, you know, needing nothing attracts everything. So we release our attachment to things, but actually what we end up with is everything or nothing. We end up with nothing and everything at the same time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This actually feels like what you're talking about here is absolutely Neptune. A lot of what you've just been, both of you have just said within that. Sacrifice is Neptune. Dissolving ego is Neptune. Jumping off the, well, you said the high wire, but I've also got an image of jumping off the cliff of safety into the ocean of oneness and being held. And this idea that when you do this, when you allow the flow and you just jump in, then spirit works through you. You know, you are one with spirit in a way when you dive into that ocean and just go with the flow. So everything that you've just been saying, apart from the obviously the codependency side of things, but just feels very much like Neptune being in its own sign at the moment. And that is, you know, that's the ultimate. That is, you know, what I feel like that's the umbrella over everything in a way, you know.
Sorry, so can you explain? So Neptune is in, it rules
It's
Aquarius,
in its,
does it?
no,
Pisces.
Neptune rules Pisces,
Pisces.
and it's in Pisces at the moment. It's been for many years, since I think 2012 or something like that. Yeah. And it's
Okay.
actually coming to the end of it, but it is, you know, it is oneness. And you know, Martin Luther King, I feel like he had Neptune very prominently in his chart, and he said, I have a dream and I may not make it with you to the promised land. So he was basically sacrificing. He knew he was sacrificing his life for something much bigger than him. But it is also about the one of the big jobs, for want of a better word, of Neptune is to dissolve anything that is separating us, you know, between our connection to the divine, including ego. You know, I'm not sure if I said that very eloquently, but that's basically what Neptune does. So it felt, as you were speaking, I said, oh my goodness, you're exuding Neptune there.
Oh, wow. Oh, wow, that's really interesting, isn't it? I love it. It brings clarity to it all. I just wanted to go back a little bit to how we started this segment on other people supporting our illusions. And that's happening in our own life and obviously in the collective, and bringing in Liz's teachings, of course, which are the there is only me concept, because, you know, people outside of us are obviously going to support the illusion because we are conditioned. We were talking about conditionality, right? We are supporting the illusion. You know, we have a belief in the illusions. So that's going to get reflected back to us in the people around us supporting us in the illusion, you know. So,
Yeah.
And so therefore, it's a nice little reminder that where does the power lie? The power lies in us, you know.
Yeah.
The power lies in us, because by breaking away from those relationships, so there's a kind of connection here with the codependency as well, isn't there? But with those relationships that are helping us support the illusion, by breaking away from them, all we're doing is releasing the illusion from our own consciousness.
Yeah.
And then that release of the illusion will get reflected back to us, and hopefully we get then support in whatever is our divine, you know, blueprint or whatever.
Yeah, it's more about seeing seeing where we are complicit in supporting the illusion. And yeah, it's not so much about, you know, breaking away from our dependency, because we are interdependent. It's moving into an interdependence from a codependence, and appreciating, you know, how we work together. It's like, because there is only me, you know, I've when I think of it, when I get confused about others and me and how we all work together, when I get confused about that, I think of all the cells in my body. You know, they're all working, doing their own little jobs, you know, in certain little groups and towns and villages and cities, and you know, all within my body, but all just keeping me alive. And that's each, you know, each of me and other, you and you, we're all just part of this whole oneness that's working together. So it's more about recognizing the value of interdependentness, the value of our relationships, and our own value, and figuring out how we can best reciprocate or give and receive within that whole, you know. So it's not about letting it go. It's not about dismissing it. It's not real. It's not that others don't exist. It all exists, but it's just recognizing how we can best play with it, how we can make it the best play, you know, theater, how we can do our best within it and have the most fun, really.
Definitely. And I think that whole idea of working together and this independence and interdependence, Amy, is that also a Capricorn to Aquarius thing? Because I kind of think that in Capricorn there is this kind of like, you know, we've all got to be a little bit, you know, like on the ball with these things, and with Aquarius, there is that humanitarian kind of, you know, freedom. So would you say that those energies are connected as well, going from being independent, have a need to feel controlled and independent kind of thing?
Yeah, control.
I was so brought up to be that independent, that's the way to be, you don't need anybody. You know? And I was like so proud of my independence. It was kind of very ego, obviously. But now to be in that beautiful, and I love the word interdependence, because, you know, because codependency, it does have a negative connotation to it, doesn't it? Whereas interdependent has a beautiful kind of, and that's what I often talk about with the community, you know, we're all just kind of helping each other and doing, that's our actual independence comes, is a communal independence from any other forces, you know, as opposed to an individual human independence. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess Capricorn is a need to control through fear, and you know, fear of loss, fear of, you know, there's lots
and ego,
and ego, yeah. But yeah, a need to kind of have too much control. There was something I was thinking in all of that, but yeah. And whereas Aquarius is a little bit more of the detachment. But what I was thinking along in there is that, you know, people you know, bash the codependency, and that is kind of, you know, we shouldn't be codependent, and interdependence definitely is a better way to go. I think that it is important for everybody to recognize that we all do have needs, you know, and to want to have your needs met out of fear is one thing, but to have needs and to express those needs in a healthy way is also a good thing, right? But maybe with less degree of attachment, you know, or less fear-based, less you're not meeting my needs, so, you know, blah blah blah. But to kind of express needs in a healthy way, and to say, you know, these are my needs, and, you know, but in more of a matter of fact, kind of slightly more Aquarian, slightly more detached way, rather than clinging, and if you don't meet my needs, you know.
Perfect, because it's that phrase that I love: needing nothing attracts everything. And we were talking earlier on off camera about my healing journey, and how, you know, people were coming out of the blue to help me heal, and I needed that. But I wasn't attached to it, because I wasn't going looking for it. I think when you're in the upper room or in your flow, you know, needing nothing attracts everything. So you actually do have that beautiful interdependence, but without coming from that place of need. You're coming from that independence. and existing in the universe.
It's not saying I need it from you. I need it from this place. I need it this way. I need, it's like just say, okay, so this is a need. Well, in fact, if it's an actual need, you don't even have to voice it. You don't have to ask for it, because it's coming to us naturally anyway, because everything we need comes to us. If you want to describe it in terms of God, God knows what we need. We don't have to ask for it. We are given what we need. We just don't often like it, but it's what we need in the moment. And so, but when we're open to just receiving what we need and accepting it, that's going with the flow. That's just with no resistance and just going with it. And from wherever it comes, it's like not saying it, you're the only one who can love me. I need your love. We are love. We don't need it from anyone else.
It does come out of the blue, doesn't it? That's why, out of the blue, out of the ether. So the healing I experienced this week was very much, the trigger, was what I needed, but then also the healing was what I needed, and it all came out of the blue. So there is a beautiful, and I think it does. If anyone is watching and is wondering, how do I get to that place that Liz is talking about? I think it's trusting. I think it's trusting that the universe is going to bring you. I want to say trusting that you are the universe and that you are bringing, everything that you need, triggers and healing and everything else. So
and I guess opening yourself up to receiving as well, and
not being resistant to the triggers. Well, I mean, just being open, open, and it's about navigating it all, isn't it? It's not about, like people say, it's not about peace and love. It's about navigating from the upper room, from your higher self, rather than, operating from the trauma, but operating from the love. I think that's if I can go back to the Pluto going from Capricorn to Aquarius, as a tarot lover, it does seem a kind of a beautiful jump, because of course Capricorn in tarot is represented by the Devil card, and Aquarius in tarot is represented by the Star cards. And although a lot of my teachings have been about learning to love the devil, there has been a lot of that, which has helped. I mean, it helps me because my husband's Capricorn, so that helps me see the positive of it all. But I see it as we're going from devil card into the star card, and the star card, of course, is typically paradise. It's my interpretation is it's heaven on earth. So we couldn't really have two more, opposite tarot cards to go from one to the other, with Pluto being the powerhouse. So for those anyone watching that's into tarot, they will be able to feel the difference there, that we're shifting from the energies of the devil card into the energies of the star.
I'm seeing Pluto as kind of the wrecking ball that just breaks down the barriers between Capricorn and Aquarius.
And when I look at the devil card, it is kind of, there are chains, aren't there? They're like held down by chains. It's like it's a kind of an ego card, isn't it? In some ways.
Also with the chains, it's funny you should say that, because yes, there are chains, but if you look really closely, you'll notice that the chains are really loose around their necks, and it makes you realize that you can just take that chain off whenever you want. And of course, the couple in the devil card are the same couple that are in the lovers card. And you just think, well, it's a choice. It's a choice. You can just literally lift these chains off. It's almost like they're there through their own free will. I think that's a really important point. They've chosen on some level to be there, and they can choose at any moment to take those chains off. And I think that's a really important point as well.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's because humanity has chosen, in a way, to be has chosen to be under this restriction of Capricorn, and you know, the patriarchy and the way that humanity is sort of under the thrall of the 1%, basically. And now we're breaking out, or we've been given the support to break out. You know, it's not going to be overnight, but or maybe it could be, but you know, it not necessarily, because that might be too painful. Actually, that might be just catastrophic. So, you know, we don't want war, and we don't want a wrecking ball. You know, we want to knock down certain bits of it at a time, softly.
And that is what generally happens with Pluto. If you look at what's happened in the past, you know, while Pluto was in Capricorn, it's been a slowly, gently. An interesting thing is that the Jimmy Savile stuff came out while Pluto was in Capricorn and Saturn was in Scorpio. So like Scorpio is Pluto's sign, Capricorn is Saturn's sign, and they were in each other's signs. So it was a mutual reception. And of course, Scorpio is all things hidden and, you know, things, you know, hidden underneath the carpet. And Saturn was like, okay, we're going to look at this now. Harsh light of reality. Take the rose-tinted spectacles off. Here we are. And that's just one of the things that's happened. And then it does feel like, if we look at the last few years, that's when it really, some really big stuff happened in the past 3 years of it being there. And if you think about Capricorn being the structures, it definitely feel like the structures have been kind of crumbling or dismantling. But it has been a gradual process since 2008, but then it has just stepped it up in the past couple of years, I think. Yeah.
I think it's also because of beliefs, of course. I mean, I meet a lot of people, or like especially the older generation, when I talk about change. You know, I've heard people say, well, not in my lifetime. They don't believe that this positive change can happen in their life because they're so conditioned by the beliefs. And especially when it comes to like banks, you know, I remember when I first had an energetic issue with the banks many, many years ago, just thinking, this isn't right, this doesn't feel right, you know. Oh, well, that's just the way banks are, end of. That's just the way banks are. And it's always that kind of like, but it doesn't have to be like this. And I've always had that energy inside of me of like, but it doesn't have to be like this. But I haven't always known the way that it can be. I haven't had the answers or the solutions. But I've always had this feeling inside of me that it doesn't have to be like this. You know, and it's like when you look at any war scene or anything, and you just think, it doesn't have to be like this.
It's that thinking outside the box, seeing things from another perspective. That's what Aquarius is.
Yeah,
you know?
But it's a belief thing. Because when you understand that you are the creator of your own reality and that you are creating your holographic projection through the frequency that you are, you realize that you change you and everything changes. And we've seen that when we're on this journey, and anyone watching this will be on that journey, so they'll be relating to what we're saying, that when you change something within you, you actually see that change outside of you. So when we all do that, this is how we are changing the world, you know, from that control and restriction into heaven on earth, you know. So we have that belief, the trust, the faith, the belief, the understanding, the consciousness, you know. But for a lot of people, the reason that the change, I think, will be slower is because for a lot of people, they just don't believe that you can change the outside of you. Because it's not so much about what's going on outside of you, of course. It's about understanding that we are multidimensional energy beings who ultimately are sovereign over our own energy, and that through our thoughts, our consciousness, our words and our actions, we can change everything and anything. But understanding and stepping into that power, this is the thing, isn't it? Helping
you can't
them.
You can't receive that information until you're at that frequency, you know, until you're tuned into that radio station. You can't receive it. And so that's, you know, people are moving at their own pace. And there's no right or wrong pace. It's the right pace for them. It's, you know, the more they resist the change, it's more the people who are tuned into the radio station and go, no, I'm turning that off. It's like, that's what causes their suffering. But, you know, the more it becomes normal or usual or all pervasive, where every radio station is broadcasting the same thing, then they'll go, oh, okay, all right, okay. You know, but it is just accepting. It's learning little poco, you know, little by little, and to trust.
Yeah, and trusting the change as well, because we've actually done a Liz on change. It's resistance to change that is the problem. Change isn't painful, it's the resistance to change. And I think that's also a really relevant point, is that in order to be able to navigate everything with ease and grace, and in order to be able to, you know, express that divinity and everything, we do need to be able to adjust to change easily. That is one of, they do say, don't they, that with evolution, it's not the survival of the fittest, it's the survival of those that can adapt to change most readily. And I think that's an important point as well, isn't it?
Yeah. An interesting thing when you were talking about the banks, the one thing that we are going to be having coinciding with all of this is that the ruler of Aquarius, we've got Pluto going into Aquarius, but the ruler of Aquarius is in Taurus, the sign of survival and the money at the moment. And so there is, you know, and it's, you know, a little, I guess, about 2/3 of the way through it at this point. It's a 7-year cycle. And Jupiter and Uranus are joining forces in April. We've also got a very big eclipse in April, and we can talk about this at another time. But it is very interesting that how might the change come about? You know, how might this new vision, this Aquarius energy manifest? Literally, the ruler of it is in the money sector at the moment. So where might be the first change that comes, the first shock, or, you know, where things do break down? And the other thing that I was thinking when you were talking is, one, you know, there is what we think on an individual level, but there is also that collective consciousness, isn't there? And how one person can have an idea or an invention and someone else has invented it and is somehow in the sphere. And yeah, so yeah, I think that's quite a big, powerful thing. There was something else I wanted to say, and it's just completely gone out of my mind. So yeah, I'll be quiet now.
I have nothing to add.
Yeah.
We're going to have to do another video then for.
I think so.
Yeah, it's just an interesting time, and how we more we understand about astrology, then the more we can understand, we can be prepared for like what's coming, and also see that what's happening in our own life, let's bring it down to our own life, you know, and see how it is all happening for our benefit, and also with your own unique birth chart, and how your birth chart, how the planets are all transiting around your birth chart and stuff like that. It's all so relevant.
Yeah, and where like Pluto is right now, we are about to experience a shift, and the Sun and Pluto are going into Aquarius. So what area of life, what house of the chart is Pluto and the Sun? our Pluto and the Sun at this particular moment in time, because that's where we're going to be experiencing a bit of a shift of energy from Capricorn, which is where we might play out some energy in that chart, and then moving into Aquarius, which is more kind of new vision and freedom. So that's an interesting thing to look at on a personal level.
Definitely. So I will definitely put Amy's details in the description. So anybody wanting their chart read, their natal chart read, and also obviously their present, what's happening, you know, at the moment. So check that out and book a session with Amy. I'm going to be doing that.
and just to yeah, encourage more, because Amy, you do focus a lot on the effects of Pluto in the chart, so I think that that's really relevant at the moment as well. So
yeah. I had a very, very powerful experience of Pluto in my life, so I know its power, and it's basically, it wants us to evolve. It's the energy that's helping us to evolve collectively and personally. It's like the cosmic kick up the bum. So
I think of it as the Tower cards in
yes,
in the Tower.
yeah, absolutely, yeah.
Wow. Wow. We've probably come to a natural pause there, ladies. Would you agree?
Yes.
Yeah.
So I do want to thank you both very much. And as Liz said earlier on, I think the cards that I did this morning are probably quite relevant to all of this. So I will put a link in the description to those as well. Is there anything else you would like to say or share, Liz, before we say goodbye?
I don't think so. I think I've said everything I needed to say. Thank you. Thank you, Amy.
And Amy, is there anything you want to say or share before we say goodbye?
Nope, there's so much more I could share. But now is not the time. I feel like we might need to do another one, because we do have some quite big energy. We've got a very big new moon in the beginning of the dragon year coming. So maybe if we can do another one before then, that would be really great.
Definitely. And I think it's really important. I mean, we mentioned before poco, and I think it's really important to make these manageable chunks. Otherwise it can be a little bit too overwhelming. And so we will love you and leave you there and say thank you to you two, and also to anyone watching, and send everybody lots and lots of love. And see you in the next video.